everyone. I'm Dr. Danita, and welcome to Baggage Claim Unpack Your Bags with Dr. Danita. If you missed any of the episodes from season 1 or 2, they're all uploaded on my YouTube channel, and this would be a good time to play catch up. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You can also follow me on Instagram and like my Facebook page. All of that information is below. Guess what? Season 3 is around the corner. And backed by popular demand, the topic is deal breakers. That's relationship deal breakers. And we're going to ask the question, do you know your breaking point? As a licensed marriage and family therapist, I work with many couples who I think should have broken the deal day one or should have never gotten into the deal. And then I work with some who are trying to break deals that are workable. And so we're going to talk about various topics that people may view as deal breakers, and we'll ask the question, deal or no deal? Kids, deal or no deal? Addictions, deal or no deal? Or are all addictions equal? You have alcohol, drugs, gambling, food addictions, shopping addictions, porn addictions. And so, deal or no deal? Submission, to submit or not to submit? That is the question. Deal or no deal? So you don't want to miss this season 3 deal breakers. I'm looking forward to joining with you. So go ahead and like and share with all of your family and friends, and join me now. Baggage Claim, Unpack Your Bags with Dr. Danita. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome again to Baggage Claim Unpack Your Bags with Dr. Danita. We made it to the final episode of season 3 Deal Breakers, and so I'm excited about tonight. We're kind of wrapping up our season, and before we do that, let's do what we do. Go ahead and begin to like and share. You definitely want to share this episode because we are coming to a culmination and kind of just going over some of the episodes that were highlighted, where there were highlights that questions or topics that may have been not fleshed out the way in which we wanted to. And so we're really going to have a good conversation on tonight with our panel. So like and share. If you have been viewing for the entire season or a portion of the season and you're a fan of Baggage Claim, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Let us know that you're a fan. And if this is your first episode for this season, this is season 3. If this is your first episode, let us know where you are viewing from. But then don't forget to go back and catch all of the episodes that you missed. You can go to my YouTube channel at Dr. Danita Thompson, and while you're there, subscribe. All right, so we have on our panel tonight, we have Karan, and I mean, we already said, many of you said that Karan's going to be my co-host for next season, season 4. So we have Karan, and we have Q, Quaitra, and we have Latoya, who is joining us on tonight, and they are excited. They are, when you look at the feed, they're the ones that it says on their top fans.
They're lead commenters.
They're the lead commenters, and so we're going to have a good time tonight. They have a lot to say. So if you want to have your comments, I'm going to try to keep up. We have our phones, and we're going to try to keep up with what you have to say on tonight as well. So don't forget to engage with us. So we're going to go just get started. And as we think back over the last 7 weeks, what were some of the highlights that stood out for you? What was your maybe favorite episode or something that you're like, we need to talk about that a little bit more?
I think that so in a whole, I thought that just the topic deal breakers was just a really good topic. But I think the ones that stood out to me the most was definitely to submit or not to submit.
Yeah.
And I think that gold diggers versus gold diggers definitely was another episode that stuck out for me. Highlight wise, I just think like in general, because those are just big cultural topics that we just talk about in general. So I just really like those particular topics for me personally. What about you guys?
I would have to agree. I thought that gold digger versus gold digger,
It's a heated episode.
that was challenging to say the least.
Elaborate.
It was just challenging for me as it related to the perspective,
Right. Of the generation.
Of the generation, yeah. And I do recognize that there is a gap.
Right.
I understand that, but it actually saddened me. In some regards.
Yeah, it was just eye opening for me because I'm on social media, but I'm not on social media like they're on social media. So it opened my eyes to like, wow, there really is a gap. Like there's a gap, and we think very differently.
Yeah, just for insight, for anybody that's on the show that hasn't seen, this episode that they're talking about was for the 25 and under. It was a 25 and under perspective of whether you're a gold digger or a gold digger. So if you haven't seen that episode, go back and watch it so that you can get some context relation on what was going on, because it was definitely a lot being said.
And you know what I find interesting, because I know, like, you said, like, there's a big gap, right? But I feel like I'm right in the middle.
Right.
And even with me being not too far from the left, I mean...
It still felt far from that, though.
Borderline, I'm on both sides, but I was just still like, where is this coming from? Like, how did it go from, I'm this age and that's that age, and that's the perspective that came from? But I'm thinking, too, like, when I was coming up, social media was a thing,
but it wasn't.
Not a thing like it is now.
It hadn't taken over.
We had like MySpace, and we was just coming into like Facebook and just coming into maybe Instagram. But now I really see like how social media is playing a big factor on like how we're viewing relationships and different things like that.
Right. So. But even though you're not that far in age, you're still in a different generation. Yeah. And the generation is called, it's another generation because they're so different.
Well, I guess because millennials have such a wide gap. But yeah.
But some of them were Gen Z.
Gen Zs, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we might have to get that blended episode going to get the good back and forth going.
Yeah.
Between them. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're solid on their opinions now. They're going to stand on their one, too. Yeah. They're going to stand on their one, too.
They were pretty firm on what they believed in, and I mean, kudos to them.
Yeah.
It's something to be
they're going to open your mind.
Yeah, it's something to be firm about what you believe. I'd rather you stand for something than fall for anything.
Yeah.
However, I thought that it was interesting because it was their perspective that that's all they kind of viewed it as was. This is what we believe, and that's it, without another perspective.
I don't blame. I mean, it's not that I don't blame. I just think that, again, social media has created a space where this is what it looks like, and part of it is reality. But the social media of it and just the entire culmination has just made it stretch so far from what we came from. It's just a different day. The dating game is just a different day.
Yeah. I try to open myself up to hearing, because I don't ever want to just have a perspective because it's what I've always known.
Right.
But it's not easy.
Definitely not.
Yeah, it's not easy. But some of the things that were shared were
absolutely. I would agree that there were some points there were quite a few that were mentioned that opened, like you said, opened up my mind. Like, okay, I can understand that. But then it came with something in left field, and I was like, okay. Yeah, so, but I mean, you have to respect them for where they are, and it's their perspective.
Yeah, as we go along, maybe we'll try to remember something, because we're talking general right now, because, it's hard to remember all of those perspectives that were shared, but as we go along, something will pop up.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And y'all make sure y'all go back and watch that episode, because it's original.
Yeah.
So for me, for the most impactful episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the submission episode was cool for me, obviously, because I was on there with my girlfriend, and that was cool for us. Cool to see that we're on. I mean, we already knew we were on the same page. Wasn't nobody about to get on camera. Not on the same page. But it's cool that it played out that way. As smooth as it did. But wasn't doing that. But yeah, that's a hot topic amongst the generation, and so I feel like for me to find somebody that's on the same page, that's pretty cool because it's another, and that's not it's generation, but I was talking to my mom about it, and it's not really it's a generational difference, but it has stretched to who's single today. So it's not really just just the Gen Zers that feel this way about submission. It's who's single in 2021 feels this way about submission, whether it's 40 to 20. You know what I'm saying? And that's the difference in that regard. Like we were talking about, and this. I'm not calling this submission. Just talking about like gender roles and submission in general. I was talking about mine. I was like, it's not really a thing today for like. It's not like at least from from how I've talked to people, it's not like a hot attribute anymore for like a woman to be able to know how to cook. Like I don't hear many women like, yeah, I know how to throw down in the kitchen. That's just not that's not a hot thing anymore. And that's like some of the topics that we were bringing up, like gender roles and submission. Is just like that's not that's not a hot thing anymore. And that was something that I was thinking about talking about. It kind of just like times are changing. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or bad thing. I'm just saying from the people that I'm around, they're like, yeah. I mean, it's not on my top 10 things to learn how to do. I don't want to learn how to cook.
I sure know how to pick a restaurant.
Right.
I know how to pick a restaurant. Right. I mean, I know how to throw down, but I can sure pick a restaurant.
Or we can Pinterest it and try it together.
Right.
It'd be a fun day for us to learn how to cook together. But I'm not just throwing down in the kitchen every day like this is a skill.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just not like it used to be.
It's not.
That moms were really home. The family structure
Right.
was really different.
Women are working much harder. I mean, and working in different fields. Right? I'm not saying they didn't work hard at home, but they're working outside the house now. So there's no need to be learning how to cook at home all day, and having time to mess it up by yourself and be like, let me figure it out. Like, it's a different day.
But while we're on the submission topic, that episode was to submit or not to submit. That's the question. I don't think I used this term on the episode, but we were talking. I feel like as we were talking and explaining what we view as submission, we were talking more of a co-leadership kind of situation as opposed to a CEO headship kind of thing. I think we kind of danced around. One is called an egalitarian. That's where you have a co-leadership.
Okay, doctor.
Right.
Yeah. And then
run that one back one more time. What?
Egalitarian.
Okay. All right.
And so rather than hierarchical.
Hierarchical.
Where there's the CEO, the head of the household, the one who makes all of the decisions. Because we were talking about how in a good husband-wife situation, although when we talk about submission, we say okay, the husband is the head of the household, but in a good situation, any head would recognize who does what well.
Right.
And so it still ends up being a co-leadership situation, even if you're calling it a head of the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
let's talk a little bit about that. Like, do we really have today what we have like back in the Leave It to Beaver kind of days? Oh no, that's I'm dating myself.
I was about to say
Leave It to Beaver. I'm dating myself.
Leave It to Beaver.
So what I mean by the Leave It to Beaver days was
family structure where the wife
was in the home,
husband worked,
the
mother raised the children.
The children were there, like ready for dad to come home.
Is that what they call the Leave It to Beaver Day?
Well, it was a show.
Yeah, I know.
You know that much.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Wouldn't be able to get your reference, but gotcha. So
anyway.
It's just again, like I was saying, it's just not like that.
I just think that it, the way in which family is set up today really speaks to the co-leadership piece. And it actually doesn't sound so bad when you say co-leadership. I think if it's presented in a different way. I think the term submission has received such a negative connotation
Very much so.
that it's a turnoff. And I agree the way in which John and I run our household, it could be considered, a co-leadership because I do have a voice. I do say what I think, would be a good idea. But then I ultimately, because I understand that I don't want to have the responsibility, and so I'm okay with you taking that lead and taking the responsibility for the family. And I think it has a lot to do with the individual.
Right.
There was a time early on where, I had to deal with my control issues. Right, in the marriage. And so that control piece wouldn't allow me to submit.
Right.
And so I think it has to do with the individual and how they're viewing their role, and what role they desire to play.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because when you're made to lead, and then you receive somebody that can lead, we don't know how to relinquish that
control.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It comes with. We think we discussed it in the episode, but it comes with that. I mean, obviously, now this is an experienced woman, but back then, who would have told your back then self? It comes with that level of security and that level of feeling safety and emotional safety.
Mm-hmm.
I think the blend with the new generation comes in where you call it a
co-leadership.
Mm-hmm. I think the blend in it being a CEO-ship is that when you consider a CEO and he knows what's good or who's good on his team, which is obviously his wife, but he knows what she's good at, and ultimately, like you said, you still don't want to be the one to have to weight that decision. I think that the part that still can be a staple today is that when a decision is made, let's give an example. Let's say you're good at finances, you're better at finances than I am, and not say I allow. We go with your decision, but that decision fails. At that point, even though that's what you're good at, the repercussion, because I'm the CEO, still falls on to me, the man, that we have to figure out how to now scrape these dimes together to get back to where we were, even though you were the one that made that call.
Right.
And to me, that's what submission looks like.
Right.
When it looks like the protection part of it is the fact that I'm not going out like, my wife made that call. She wanted to go get another job, figure out how we going to catch up with this mortgage. No, that's not how it goes. You know what I'm saying? But today has lost that part of it.
But also in good leadership, you're not going to say, that's why I shouldn't have let you make that decision.
Right. None of that stuff.
Right.
Because that's what makes submission sound like such a negative connotation.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think it's too, like, to add to all of that, I think all of that was like perfect, and then it's just having a level of maturity.
Right.
I think like nowadays there's so much immaturity where if something like that would happen, it's like, well, it's your fault. We start pointing the fingers.
To get ahead
of
mentality, like whose fault? I'm
But
taking the blame off me.
like we're on a team, so like if I'm on a basketball team and if I miss a shot, the whole team not going to stop and say, "Oh, it's your fault."
Right.
No, they're going to be like, "Okay, we got to huddle up and figure out how we want to," And that's what we have to realize at the end of the day, that as a couple, you're a team, and that's why I think like with the whole submission thing, I feel like a lot of immaturity of understanding it.
Yeah.
Goes along with.
Well, also, and what it really represented, back in the day, where it didn't matter what she did well, she didn't even have a voice.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that is what continues to give it such a negative connotation. But I think we do have a blend and a good mix, and I think if your marriage is flourishing and your home is flourishing, whatever the two of you have come to agree on that works for you, that's what you go with.
Absolutely.
And pass it on to people and let them get what they can get from it.
Absolutely.
Because the world needs help right now as far as that part goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So
let's not stay on that. We'll rock it out with this submission topic. You might as well keep us going.
Yeah. I was thinking about if this is still with the submission. And just one an example. An example came to me from back in when we first got married. That was 100 years ago. And so
now if I said that, all right, go ahead.
So there was an older gentleman that was in our church. He's long passed on, so I can talk about it. But anyway, we had decided that I would be the one to do the finances, take the finance part of that would be my role. And he said to Arnell, he says, "You gonna let that girl?" Yeah, that kind of stuff. "You gonna let that girl do the money?" See,
Do the money.
Yeah, do the money. That kind of stuff, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad even at that age, because we were very young, he could have very easily been, influenced by that. But he said, "Yeah, she does a good job."
Right. And if that's your strong point,
Yeah.
like it would be ignorant.
Yeah, and that's what the statement was, ignorant.
Yeah, it would be ignorant for you to be it would be ignorant for you to pass up on an opportunity of your spouse doing what they do well because of your ego.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or because of what you view as tradition.
Or because what you view as tradition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I'll be honest with you, I'm not changing no tires.
As you should.
Me either.
I'm not doing it. I don't get out. I'm not doing lawn. I'm not taking out trash.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Not that I
traditional as
can't.
it relates to that. Not
that I can't.
and I'm okay with any woman
Who
that
does. Absolutely.
It's just for me.
Right.
But I just
for
feel
me.
like percentage wise, normally women don't. I mean, I'm sitting up here with three of y'all, and all y'all like, I'd rather not.
Well, I mean, there
Yeah,
are
it's
single
an emergency.
women that have to do it. Whoever chooses, it's good,
Yeah.
But yeah, those not things.
Not for you. Or
Right.
you. Or you.
And I consider myself quite a progressive woman.
But not.
I am too, and I will get out and shovel if John can't get home in time. I will do that. So because again, we're a team, and so if I know that he's coming in late and we need to shovel, I personally will do that.
Haven't joined that team yet.
It's okay. But you said something you stated something very
What
clear.
works for us.
What works for you all, work for you all, and what works for us. And I think it's important, and I think what social media has done is it has put out a visual of what one couple does and made it the norm for everybody. And it doesn't work that way.
It's the goal now.
Yes.
Now it's become the
Hashtag
goal.
goals.
Hashtag relationship goals. Right. And so I think, when you get that mindset, now you're on this road to destruction. Because now everything that your spouse does is compared
to a picture.
to an image or a video on social media.
Yeah, we talked about that in one of the episodes.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely.
So, one of the episodes was, you were on that episode when we talked about, we talked about codependency.
Oh yeah, you can get into that.
Yeah, in relationships.
It's a deeper topic. We might have some episodes coming up on codependency because I never knew by
That's a whole
definition
season.
what that actually means, but it's.
And
it's
you know what? If you're viewing, let us know some of the topics that you would like to see.
Definitely.
For the next season, we haven't really completely made a decision as to what we're going to do. So let us know what you'd like to see, and we'll see what we can work out for the next season.
Definitely.
But yeah, so we talked about codependency, and I had mentioned that a lot of people link codependency to being involved with a partner who is an alcoholic or some sort of addiction. But codependency
is so much
more. But one of the big things with codependency is the lack of boundaries and not having limits and not knowing where you begin and end or your partner begins and ends.
Right.
And overstepping what you said you were going to do or what you said you would never do. And just allowing yourself to be sucked in, on a regular basis to things that you
Wouldn't normally
always
do.
said that you wouldn't do. And I think I had mentioned in an episode, I think in season 2, when we were talking a little bit about boundaries, and I said that we have to remember that boundaries are not for the other person; they're your boundaries. And so I think often people try to make other people do things that this is my boundary. You can't do X, Y, Z. It's not like it's what you won't permit
Right.
to happen for to you or
Yeah.
for you. Yeah.
Outside of relationships, I feel like that's something that I learned early. Outside of relationships, because inside of relationships is way different. But yeah, boundaries for yourself. Like for me, my mother knows when I was younger, I was a bit of a hothead. So I had to set
A little bit more than a bit, but
a little bit more than a bit. So the thing was, and before I knew the terminology and the things, I had to set boundaries for myself, for me, for you, because me and you will get into a conversation if I let you affect me in this way. So that was like my boundary. Like you're not going to get me outside of this space and of my norm because that person is not a good person and it can get ugly in here. So that was how I curved my behavior throughout the years is, and I didn't even know it was called codependency or, whatever, like letting somebody affect your behavior, how they're feeling is becoming you and now, they're getting you enraged. But I think as humans and as people, I would go as far as to say codependency, especially when in a relationship, is not like something that you need to watch out for. So it's something that you actively have to work to not actually be.
Because
like as
it
a human.
happens
Naturally.
It just happens very naturally. Yeah.
Well, I think it's important for us to go back to earlier dialogue about the whole racial piece. Be culturally,
Break it down.
we have been conditioned to be codependent on one another for survival.
True.
And so what that has produced is a people today that can't create boundaries for themselves.
Right.
Because we're family.
Right.
I
This is
can't
what
tell
family
you
does.
this is what family does.
And you really can't, in that setting that you're speaking of, you really don't even have the space to create boundaries.
You don't even have you're just trying to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that mentality has been transferred over generations. And so here we are today, and we don't understand why no is okay.
Right.
Or even, keeping with culturally, what happens in this house stays in this house. So then, therefore, we can't talk to anybody, and so everything becomes so enmeshed in the family, and you start lying for the others and covering up, and all of that's part of codependency, covering up for other people's wrongs, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then it just takes on so many different aspects. Yeah. Codependency takes on so many aspects of our lives that we don't realize. Mm-hmm. And so this is why it's great to have a baggage clean. Yeah. To discuss these topics, because I'll be honest with you, if I didn't go the path of mental health, I wouldn't have been privy. I wouldn't be privy to boundaries and codependency, and God forbid counseling.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's these platforms that bring awareness. But the key is when you become aware, now you're responsible for change. Now you're responsible for taking that information and saying, okay, let me take a step back and look at who I am. Yeah. Because it's easy to project. Let me take a look at who I am and do I have codependency tendencies? Do I have these traits? And how can I work on them?
So generally speaking, not necessarily due to our culture, but why do you think people have such a difficult time maintaining boundaries within relationship?
I would say for me, what I think I see the most is I think it's guilt.
Yep.
I think it's like the fear that I'm going to miss something if I say no or anything to that extent or lose something. So when you think about a relationship, like, okay, if I create this boundary for myself and I say no, am I going to lose my spouse? You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like a fear that I'm going to miss something. Or if I say no and I create that boundary, it's like now I feel guilty. I also think like another thing too could be, yeah, like just the pretty much I would say, yeah, the fear of it, the guilt of it. Those are I would say primarily. I was going to say something else, but I'll say that later. If it's, yeah.
I think also if your partner is not healthy,
Right.
no one enjoys boundaries.
Right.
So if your partner isn't healthy and you're establishing boundaries, then it's going to create tension because they don't feel you have the right to do that and to draw this line or this limit, like how dare you, I'm your spouse. And so the guilt is not just internal, but it's being it's coming from your mate, that you don't have the right to draw that line, and it's not fair, or it can create anger, and so no one wants to have to face that and deal with that, and so it's easier even if you're losing yourself, and that happens a lot. You can be losing yourself, but for the sake of not having to, and that's what codependency is. Most often, you lose who you are for the sake of keeping the peace, or making sure the other doesn't drop the ball, or so that you don't have embarrassment where you're trying to pick up the pieces so that no one sees that this is this is going on. Yeah.
I was about to say the fear of imperfection. Like to show that you have like blemishes or anything like that. Because everybody, especially if it's a newer relationship, you don't want your spouse to think that there's nothing wrong. You want them to think that everything smells good. I don't, when they even I forgot what movie it was that I was watching, but it was like a movie where the girl would wake up before time, curl her hair, put her makeup on, lay back in bed, because she would want like the spouse to see her. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
that was Napoli Ever After.
Right. So it was like those type of things that I'm saying, like when you're in a relationship, you don't want them to see the blemishes. But to me, I'm just like, you want to see those ahead of time because you don't want them to creep up and then.
I would think.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely say the fear of imperfection would be another issue of why we don't create those boundaries.
Yeah.
I'd say.
So, Karan, you're not married yet. So, what concerns do you have, or what things are you going to keep in mind, knowing that we're presenting this, and it can happen without you even really being
aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Make yourself aware of it. Keep an open eye for and make it like it's not like you're secretly keeping an open eye about this from your partner. You know what I'm saying? You're telling your partner like we are keeping an open eye for this together. But I mean, again, the communication, like for those who don't know, my girlfriend is in school to become a therapist, to work in social work. So our level of communication is like that, So I will say the codependency thing is something that as it takes practice, like it just does. So that's something that you just have to practice. And though I haven't been there yet, the one thing I would tell people to do is go to
premarital counseling or counseling.
No, actually, both. You need to be
you need to work on you
first.
first.
Whatever
You need
place
to be
you
working
are
on you first, and then get into premarital counseling.
Right.
That's and I say this to people a lot. People my age, and we have to have encouraging conversations with each other because like divorce is running rampant. You know what I'm saying? And like it doesn't have to be your story, and the things that you see on Instagram doesn't have to be your story. And we have to remind each other that all the time because it can be like really discouraging to see like Instagram works like that, and it works in the opposite too. So it's like you see all those things, you see all those relationship goals, but then you see all the crazy stuff that happens on Instagram too, like the Derek Jackson of the world, who are it's just like a crazy. I'll give you insight on that later. But for those of you who know Derek Jackson, it's like crazy stories that I shouldn't even know anything about. I don't need to know this man's whole story that's plastered all over Instagram. That's like making these women think more than anything Like, there's no man out there that just doesn't do these things, because if he did it, whom you don't even know this man, you just saw
Right.
what he does on Instagram.
Right.
But your work is your work, and your story is your story. So if you know that you're going to counseling, you know that your partner is going to counseling, and y'all are working on that, and then you work on it together, you don't know where their story started and how they got here and how he was on the internet acting like the perfect man, yet he was cheating on his wife. And I'm just using him as an example, but there's plenty. But that, you know what I'm saying. So you take that and you compare it to your story, but it doesn't have to be that if your foundation is nothing like theirs.
Right.
So that's what we're working on, is setting our foundation to be nothing like the things that we don't want it to end like.
Right.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
part.
It doesn't have to be like that, but then also when I look at all of the Black love, everything looks like it
Perfect
is
picture.
peaches and cream and perfect pictures, and everybody's beautiful, and all the kids are beautiful, and nobody's running
And there's
around
a
like
big
a
house in the
rundown.
background.
The house is clean, and everything is absolutely beautiful.
No kids are throwing up.
Nothing.
Their hair is perfect.
You never gotta change a diaper.
Nobody's getting peed on.
Right.
So, having that balance of understanding that life really is real, but you don't have to be cheated on every day. You don't have to, you don't have to be in that situation, but you also have to know that, that marriage isn't a fairy tale. It just isn't. It's just not.
It's just not.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there was another episode where we talked about in sickness and in health, and getting into relationships with people who could potentially have a mental health issue, which a lot of people have mental health issues. But there was one thing that I wanted to highlight, because I've been on this healthy journey. And I had been listening to various people talk about health and what it means to take care of your body, the impact it has on your family. And so I heard someone say that to care for your health is an act of grace and honor for your family. So what does that mean for you? Like, if you were in relationship with someone who was very negligent of their health, would that be a deal breaker?
I was gonna say I guess it depends on like what part of the relationship it is. So like me being already married, like, we start out young, so we're all, doing what we're supposed to do at that time. But over time, if you see that your spouse is no longer doing that, I think that it's our job as the spouse to hold each other accountable. But I guess like if you're somebody that's coming into a relationship, I honestly don't even think like those are questions that you think about, honestly. Like when you're going in, like nobody thinks like, is this person healthy? Like when you are going in, depending on what age. But I just think like that's definitely a big issue. But I do think like as time goes on in a relationship, you do need to hold that person accountable. Because like, if you're getting into your 40s or 50s or 60s and you know that they're supposed to be taking medication and they're not, it's like, well, why are we taking medication? Why not? Let's change our eating habits.
Right.
Like we're so quick to, and again, that can go back to the cultural thing. Everybody, that you hear about that's in our culture normally is like on high blood pressure pills or on this, but not being okay with that, but being okay with saying, well, you know what, let's change our eating habits. Let's take a walk. Let's do this. So I think it's our job to hold each other accountable. But that's me speaking from somebody who's married for some time now, though. I don't know like what that looks like.
Why y'all
going in? You gonna have to speak on that, correct? Is that a question that you would think about? Like if that didn't come up on the show, is that something that you thought about to say like, what are your health things like?
I don't know if it's something I would think about. I don't know if it's something that it's not like on my list of questions to ask, right. But I do think it's something that I'm attracted to. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we'll be hitting on the same page all the time if you just eat anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, and because I haven't always been, but coming into a new like for the past, I'll say call it 3-4 years, like coming into the knowledge of the things that we've been taught, like that I wouldn't, you have to reteach yourself big time.
Yeah.
In order to figure out, like, it's a lot. It's deep as far as talking about what you're putting inside your body and what you've been taught to put inside your body versus what's good for you. And so if that's where I'm at and that's what I'm talking about, even if I'm not like moving on it like at some high frequency, but I'm like still learning like all about it, and you're like, yeah, but I still, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm still gonna eat anything, like, right? You know, and I'm not even, we're not gonna label it fried chicken because fried chicken is fried chicken. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? We're not gonna just throw fried chicken out the window, but we're not, we're not doing it 5 times a week. It's not something you can, it's not, you know what I'm saying? Not even. It's just not the same as it used to be, and if you're not operating like that, I don't know that it probably speaks volumes to other areas of you being open minded.
Yeah.
So it would be a bigger issue for me, and I feel like that would be something that would play itself out. Is that if you can't be open minded about changing your diet, you probably aren't open minded about a lot of things.
Or self-control.
Or self control. That's what I'm saying. It
That's
will become a
big.
bigger issue. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like,
But I'm saying, like, is that, I would just think as a younger couple coming in, I know for me, I wasn't saying like, oh well, let me check how he's eating. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
but
Like,
that you were much younger though.
Right.
I'm 31 and she's 32, so
And
those are things that we're now doing.
A lot of it has to do with the level of awareness and education, and it's not just about taking care of the body, it's all the ramifications that come with not caring for your body, right? And so it's not even, some people are like, oh well, they're not thinking long term, like what this could happen, what this could potentially do to that person long term. That's not your first thought, but no one else also thinks about the emotional aspect of not eating well, and how it can change your mood, and how
Right.
somebody's mood can affect the relationship, and you're in a relationship and somebody is moody based on what they're eating, and that can be resolved. That's a problem, or even someone who has anxiety, and this is away from the food necessarily, but is not taking care of themselves, or going to do what they need to do with the psychiatrist or the counselor, and getting the skills to maintain it. That all affects your ability to do relationship in a healthy way. But people don't necessarily make those connections. Yeah. But the longevity part is real too, like it's not just a matter of living a lot of years, but what kind of quality of life are you having, during those years that you're living. And I'm doing a lot of research on this. So we talk about sexually transmitted diseases, right? I'm learning that there are things that can be bacteria and things that can be sexually transmitted that don't fall on the disease STD side, but it still can be passed back and forth through partners. So
because of what you're putting in your body.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there are new studies that are, it's in its infancy stages, but yeah, there are new studies.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
These people still out here randomly running these streets.
All right. Y'all a little quiet on this chat.
Very much so in the comments.
Maybe you are just really, really listening and paying attention. But
the comments are quiet.
Let us know what you are thinking.
Well, the commenters on the show.
Right. We do have our 2 highest ranking commenters on stage.
Yeah. So that gold digger. They took one of the questions that we didn't really get to really flesh out was the impact of social media on relationships. And so, they talked about it, but I think we have a different perspective based on what we see in the behaviors of the generation. So, what are your thoughts? Well, some of it we talked about when I said the Black love, and that's a significant impact because everybody's looking at it and thinking, yes, that's what I want. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Like, you have so many couple influencers that are on social media, and they're presenting this lifestyle, from the proposal and the big proposals, and to the marriage and the big marriages, and then the once you get married and you have the kids, and it's all these maternity photos. But I always wondered, what is behind the scenes? You know what I mean?
Because you'll never see it.
Right. And I'm just that's the interesting part. I forgot the social media influencer's name. If I'm not, it might be Queen Naija and her spouse, but however, she was like, they were like a big social media, and they were like a couple, but behind the scenes, they were like sleeping in separate bedrooms.
And then they ended up splitting up.
And they ended up splitting up, but on social media and YouTube, they were like a big following, and people was modeling their lives after them. Another one that's like Latoya Forever, like she's another big social media influencer. So I say all that to say is that I think it has set the precedence of like what people view, but it's not real. And I think like people haven't disconnected the two. Like I see your story and I see it's not real, but yet I still go to your social media page and want to copy everything that I see on your social media page.
Yeah. What the scary part is, like, you expect children at 5 or 3, 4, and 5 to understand, to not to understand that Superman's not real and they're gonna jump off the couch or whatever, acting like Superman. But when people become adults and can't decipher because they have ingested so much.
Yeah, I was about to say it's much more intricate though now. Like it comes in ways that social media is a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
Like it is doing what it's intended to do, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think this was a mistake, like what it's doing to the generations. But I don't mean to interrupt you, man. But
No, go ahead.
But yeah, it's like it readily and like subtly infiltrates how you feel, and like again, like someone like you are influencing people, but you have a bachelor's, 2 masters, and a doctorate that people can see on your wall. There are so many social media influencers that the new doctorate is 1 million followers.
Wow.
So now because I have 1 million followers, it says that my opinion matters.
And
it has much value. And so that's how you get a Queen Naija, or I'm gonna go back to him. I'm harping on it because this was like the biggest black man hater in the history, not in the history, but maybe he was top 5 for just hating on black men and telling these black women the type of man that they need. And when you want to say Superman doesn't exist, he was describing Superman, and these women are like over it, hand and foot, buying his books, eating it up left and right. And I'm like, for anybody that I know personally, for any of my friends, I'm telling you, this man that he's describing, he's not himself, for one, and 2, that person does not exist. I'm telling you, some of the things that he describes sounds like a good man because it is. But the way in which he delivers it, and the things that he says that a man is not supposed to do and supposed to do, and the things that he's supposed to be on top of at all times, and the things he wouldn't say to you if he cared about you. I'm like, wait. Any man has said that at any time, and now you're sitting here telling these women that he doesn't care about them if he would say something like that. This is just poison. But he has 1 million followers. Yeah. And then the story comes out. He's been doing everything. He's doing everything that he says not to do. I mean, everything. And the women are coming from left and right. Talking about Derek Jackson. We slept together last week. I'm like, this is why you can't go for this foolishness. Like, and he doesn't have the credentials. He wrote a book because he got 1 million followers on Instagram. That's what happened. So it's tricky because if you just sit and listen to him for a minute, he gets you. But if you sit and you actually infiltrate the content, you're like, this guy is poisoning people. Like, this is crazy, and he's still out there. He this is how you know it's crazy because this thing that came out like last year sometime. I mean, he is back on Instagram giving out advice, back like nothing ever happened. Like, and people are still listening. I'm like, y'all get on my nerves. Y'all ain't even made this man. Y'all all this cancel culture. Y'all ain't gonna cancel this guy? Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, social media. I think, like, I agree with what Ron said. I don't think like it was done by happenstance. Like definitely I think like it was definitely because you think about social media is like, well, if I can get them to present this, well, we're just gonna buy into it. You know what I mean? Because that's all we know. So. Yeah, social media has definitely played a huge impact on relationships and what we see. But too much, I think, yeah.
Yeah, to the point of sickness. Someone reminded us that one of our guests called it social media sickness.
Mm-hmm. That was actually me. We're not going to
sorry.
Might have to quote that.
Social media sickness. Yeah.
definitely what it is.
The deeper issue is internally.
What? How you feel about social media?
How you feel about yourself.
Right. When you watch it.
Because I can see information and I just need but.
Right.
And it doesn't have an impact. Someone who is dealing with some internal issues, some mommy issues or some daddy issues, some trauma issues, are going to take that information because this person says this.
Right.
It
Right.
validates me.
Yeah.
And so this is what I need to obtain.
But you also had years of opportunity to develop a sense of self.
Without social media.
Without
social
social
media.
And these this generation,
living through
this
this.
is all they have
Yeah.
known.
And I just
And
missed
they're
it.
developing their sense of who they are based on social media.
I would say that is happening prevalently throughout the generation that's just younger than me. But I don't know if you can relate, but for me, even personally, like I have to check myself sometimes because it doesn't change who I am as a person. It doesn't change me knowing self. But I will say that looking at people my age, sometimes when you don't have everything together, you can look at some people that are presented on social media like, I know I can have it together like this person. Like, how does this person? How have they already obtained this and I haven't obtained this? And I know you can fall into that comparison even as a healthy person if you're just digesting too much. And you're because you can go and see a million people on Instagram that look like they have more money than you. Maybe 30% of them actually do, but 70% just know how to present well on Instagram, which is a whole skill. Or that thereof, whatever you want to call it, because they have social media sickness in themselves if they're actually broke and presenting like they're rich on Instagram. That's a whole other sickness. But yeah, you can look at people and be like, this guy's 27 and already got his Benz, and I'm 31 and don't have it yet. Like, come on, I gotta get it together tomorrow. Like, you know what I'm saying? You can do that easily at my age.
Validation is also like likes. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
people are literally addicted
It's
to their phone because
addicted.
it's like as soon as I post a picture, okay, how many likes did I get?
Or take it
notification,
down.
How many? Right.
We'll take it down if it doesn't get enough.
If
likes.
it doesn't get enough likes. So
That's a real thing.
that's what I'm saying. So it's like it's to the point where like likes and what people think is the basis of of who you are. But that's the generation. So I think like to piggyback off what you were saying was that you didn't grow up in an era, so you was already like, okay, I'm good. I know myself. I have my identity. But nowadays it's like
it's a part of your identity.
Right. Like your grandchildren would be like, well, grandma, look at this, look how many. You're like, okay. But to them, it's so like, it's the end all be all. You could say something,
normal.
but if social media says it, that's it.
Invalid.
Right.
Thanks.
Really. And it's a shame, but that's just how this generation
It's
is.
scary. It's
scary. It's not getting any better.
Yeah.
It is. Because what is the condition of our future if the generations to come and that's coming behind us, they're building their identity and they're building their lives based off of social media.
And then building their life, and then you have the culture that, like, 10 years ago, everybody wanted to be a rapper. Now everybody wants to be a social media influencer. And then they like won't even go out and think about getting jobs. They're like, no, I just need one viral video and I'll be famous. And I'm talking about regular people like that have no shot.
It's as young as like I have a 5-year-old who's like, Mom, I want to do a YouTube page because they are on YouTube kids, and they're just like, oh, I want to do a YouTube. And sometimes it's like, it's you're like, okay, like I see that you want to do this, but then I just have to kind of step back where I'm like, I give her tablet time because I'm just like, I can't allow this to consume her.
Right.
That she's watching this and she's like, oh, I want to do it because of YouTube. So you have to kind of ask like, well, why do you want a YouTube channel?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Are you doing it because you see it, or are you doing it because you really want one? Right. So I just think like that's the stage that we're in. It's not just adults. They're growing a generation of that because it's not just YouTube. Everything having kids on it to also like make their minds the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I think at any age, all of us are exposed to social media. So at any age, we can very easily slip into, because I mean, even doing what I'm doing now, part of it is like, oh, you want people to be able to see it, and so you're looking, okay, how many people are watching, how many people are looking, and so and then I could very easily say, well, how in the world did she get to be able to,
Exactly.
get all of these people following, and that's the information that's being put out there,
Right.
And so you think, you're putting out wholesome, pure information that people can grow with and whatever. So it can happen at any age, but
Very true.
yeah,
It's the amount of exposure that you have to social media.
Absolutely. I think it's how much you consume,
yeah,
how much you allow yourself to be consumed with, is key.
Right.
And
It's a balance.
there is literally no discipline these days. Like, no, the screen time, 10 hours a day, and
Right.
yeah, that's
A lot.
yeah.
I was listening to this guy. His YouTube page is called Inspire Me, and he was talking more about TikTok, but he was like how the brain is being retrained to almost like just naturally have an attention deficit because without social media, your brain is like when you wake up in the morning, you know what you expect to see, the insides of your room. You wake up and you know that you're going to your kitchen. You go out the door, you expect to see trees and maybe your car. When you're going on the road, you see the road, you see the future, you see your job. And your brain is able to process much quicker. Whereas when you get on TikTok and you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, your brain literally every 10 seconds is going from a bunch of puppies playing with each other to a couple breaking up to a prank on a dad to beautiful mountains in Alaska to vacations in Jamaica to some cute bathing suits that you want to buy to the nice car to this person just broke up with this person to and it's exactly but is that not a headache? Is that not exactly what's going on? Though? And how can your brain train itself to focus on things in the real world when this is what it's naturally used to doing is naturally jumping off of something every 10 seconds. So you can't even read a paper for 10 seconds because you're reading what's in the corner here. You're looking at this. You're just your brain is just moving because you're training it to every day because you're literally going from each end of the world and every 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm. So that means our brain chemistry that Whitney said, social media is changing our brain chemistry.
It basically is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's quite sad because these children, will they be able to sit and read a book, a textbook, 5-10 pages? And I mean, I struggle.
Literally.
And but I think about, and so, I think about my grandchildren when they come over, it's only quick. Like, I'm like trying to read a book to her, and she's like, and she's gone. Because like you said, her mind is going. She needs that next. We get to a place where we're like, we need the next. And so when we don't get the next, now we search. Right. Now we search, and then we find ourselves. Yeah, and it just becomes a.
And now social media has like made you like the mean parent. If you don't allow your kids to just be on social media all day, you're like the mean parent. Like like all my friends have social medias. They're on their own. Like it's literally becoming like how TV was back in the day when your parents be like, get off that TV. Like now it's like social media. Like get off that social media from a young age. Like you have to check it and be like, no, sit down.
And now how young
book.
they are able to get.
I think about my granddaughter. So when she comes over, we let her watch the Baby Shark, right? And that entertains her, right? Right, and it entertains her. The interesting thing is when I turn off the Baby Shark, I know when I'm ready for her to settle down and bring it in because maybe it's time to go to sleep, I can turn it off. She doesn't know what to do with herself. She doesn't know what to do with herself.
It's like she snaps out of having watched that Baby
Shark. And then she'll come and then she'll settle in and go right to sleep. But her brain is so accustomed to going because she watches the show.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, it's sleep time, and I'll turn off the computer, and she'll wander around, let her wander around, kind of detox, if you will, and then she realizes her brain says, "You're tired."
Yeah.
And then she'll climb up on my lap and go to sleep.
It's different.
It is. That's what we end with. It's different. Yeah. So just to bring it back around, because we can talk about social media. That could be another season, but a whole season. But bringing it back to relationships, the crux of all relationships is the level of communication and the effectiveness of communication that you're able to have with any of these topics.
Right.
How well you're able to communicate through and be able to make your decision as to whether this is going to be a deal breaker or not, is really important. And so when we think about communication, what would you say would be, what methods do you use to ensure effectiveness in your communication within your relationship?
For me, I think like, so the two biggest things that I would say for me, because I hear a lot of people with communication is, you have to talk to each other, right? So that's obvious. But like, okay, Einstein, we get it. But I would say honestly, the biggest things that work for me, but this is being in a relationship for about a little over 10 years, is nonverbal cues. You pick up on habits of your spouse. So like if I say something to them, it may, you may be in that space where it's like, well, I don't say nothing, but I can tell by their body language. Mm-hmm. I can tell like how they respond for me to be like, oh, well, what's wrong with you? Or how they walk in. Or so I think like nonverbal cues honestly is a big thing for me, because again, in this day and age, communication, if we're talking is not a thing, then you have to look at the opposite, right? You have to look at, well, how is his body responding? Well, I'm saying him because I'm a woman, but her, you have your wife. You would have to see like how they respond. So I think nonverbal cues is one big thing. And the other thing I would just say is you really have to be intentional. For myself, if you don't, know me, but we have two younger children. We have a 5-year-old and we have a 2-month-old. You have to be intentional when you have that level of children, in the house. Mm-hmm. You have to be intentional, because you can just go in robot mode.
Yes.
And it can just be, we wake up, we make sure Lauren gets to school, we make sure, this one has that and that one has this. Oh, and it's just robotic things that you just do for each other. Oh, I love you too. And you go about your business. But sometimes you really have to have that intentional time where it's like, how are you feeling? Not just how was your day, but how did today make you feel? Like just having those things. So for me, those work. We're in the space that we're at now because of where we're at. Of course, like if you have older children, it's different. But where we're at right now is just being intentional and looking out for those nonverbal cues for me that helps us in communicating.
Yeah, I call those level 1 and level 2 conversations. Level 1 is where you are just having household management conversations, and those are the easier conversations for husband and wife. But then the level 2 are the conversations that you have, like opinions, or like you said, how was your day? Opinions over things that are external in the relationship. But then level 3 is the about us, and how are we feeling. How am I feeling about you? How are you feeling about me? And the more deeper, under the surface kinds of conversations. And those really take intentionality, because it takes headspace. It takes bringing your emotions to it. The managing a household doesn't take bringing your emotions to it. It's just, like you said, robotic. You just do it. Yeah.
Well, I know for me, I wasn't the greatest communicator earlier on in our marriage, simply because I didn't know what that looked like. Period. However, you said something key. You said, communicate. We have to talk. Well, whatever happened to just listening? And so I'm learning in a newer season of my marriage that it's okay to listen. Listen to your spouse. Don't listen because you want to prove yourself. Don't listen because you want to judge what they're saying. Don't listen because you want to tell them what you think is right or wrong, but just listen. And I think for me, it has, it's very different, because John's like, well, you're not going to say nothing? I'm like, I'm listening, because for many years, my communication skills were horrible. I was just like, rah, 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 rah. Say what I gotta say. You gonna listen?
How does it sound though when it comes out?
And so I'm learning in this season that it benefits me to listen, Because in listening, I really get to hear the heart.
And that's the part.
It's that part.
Hearing the heart.
Yeah.
Because everything that comes out is not always pretty. But
Right.
if you are connected, you're in a covenant and you already know your spouse's heart. So they may not be in a space where they're communicating in ways that are, or stroke you or make you feel good or
Right.
whatever, but you know their heart. And so what you're doing is trying to listen for the heart issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's a work in progress. I mean, John and I, we're 30 years in, and it's funny because John and I talk like 3 or 4 times a day, and then we talk when we get home. So we've learned to master that part of just communicating. He'll tell me about his day. We communicate and we're talking. We're talking, but now I'm learning to listen because now we're in a different stage and phase of our life. And so what I needed to listen for in our 20s is not what I need to listen for in our 50s. And being able to distinguish between the two.
You're claiming 50 already.
I am. All right. Okay.
Join the club.
Thanks for pointing that out, Dr. Danita.
That just hit me. Like,
all right.
Well, congratulations. For me, fortunately and cautiously, me and my girl are still in the enamored phase. So it's like we have much things to communicate about. You know what I'm saying? So the topics aren't off the table, and there's endless things to talk about when you're getting to know somebody and staying up on the phone all night. So we are just learning each other's nonverbal cues and what makes each other tick and things of that nature. And love languages. I mean, we know each other's love languages. We've discussed them, and that's obviously another form of communication. At least to know them.
Right.
Start there. But yeah, we just what was the question?
what ways have you been able to make communication effective?
Yeah.
You were going and going.
You could have just kept going.
I was trying to-
never knew.
I was trying to wrap it back around, but so our communication is effective just by trying to be as transparent as possible, and not taking anything off the table, and both of us having made each other feel comfortable enough to say the things that we feel without being blasted or judged or it being used against in another argument or things of that nature, which is something you have to work on because I can only state that because it's been done already, and then you acknowledge it and say, let's not do that.
Right.
And yeah, just again, it's not the hard. I can say it's definitely not as difficult a level as it would be for some of the things that y'all have been through because we're just in the phase where everything is,
peaches and cream.
It's not peaches and cream, but it can be.
It's peaches. We didn't get the cream yet.
It can be sweet for the majority of the time. It's more sweet than it is ever bitter, and I know that during marriage there can be seasons of bitterness. You know what I'm saying? Or I don't want whatever you want to label it.
Right.
There could be seasons of that. We haven't been through a whole season of being angry with each other or growing into different spaces and being able to convert those spaces back into a marriage, which I know is like the long story.
Yeah.
So we're just gearing up and trying to create a great foundation for what the future looks like.
That's good, and it's really good that you all are doing this now. So what you're doing is in this laying of the foundation doesn't mean that you won't have those roadblocks. Right. However, you'll know how to navigate them, so they won't be cinder blocks. They'll just be a rock that you can kick out the way.
Right. And being on these episodes and engaging in all of these relationship topics, you have a lot in your pocket.
Arsenal.
Arsenal.
I think so.
Yeah, you got some weaponry going on. Yeah. So
And I would say one more thing too with the communication thing. Just one quick thing. Is don't make assumptions. Always tell
that's good.
That's good.
Ask the actual question or say it.
I would say that don't make assumptions because sometimes I think like we assume that our spouse know,
Right.
Mhm.
But sometimes, and we get upset because we're like, oh, you should know, but they're just like, I'm innocent. Like, I had no idea
Yeah.
that this was the issue. So that would be another thing, is don't make assumptions, just tell them what you want.
Yeah. Y'all heard that statement of when you assume?
You
Okay.
always got
I'm
one.
just asking Danita.
She was waiting. You always got a statement.
We
You already know it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll have to say it. You know it?
I do.
Okay.
That one I know. Why is she trying to say it off the mic? It's okay.
Wait, I'm lost. Wait, what is this?
Assuming can make an ASS out of UME.
Oh, yeah, I did hear that. But I was
Oh, yeah, I did hear that.
that's too much of that scrolling on social media, right? I'm like, huh? What am I missing? I'm pretty sure I answered the question for those that's gonna watch this and didn't know. So there you go. Now you know what it is.
Dr. Danita.
So,
Yeah, I did hear that.
So communication in any of these topics that we have discussed is absolutely essential. And when we talked about the red flags, and we're wrapping up, the lack of communication or the lack of the ability, the inability to be able to remain in a conversation, one who walks away from conversation, those should be red flags, and you should run to the professional's office. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a deal breaker, but because communication is everything that you do every day, it's a major part of your relationship. You definitely don't want to go down the aisle not having rectified that particular part of what you are struggling with. Absolutely. So,
What?
this is it.
Until next season.
Until season 4, thank you so much for everyone who hung with us for every episode, or even if you just caught a few. If you haven't, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can, while we're on a break, just go through and binge on Baggage Claim. Yeah.
Definitely.
It's better than binging on social media. You'll learn something, and
Get some tools.
And so until then, and it's not too late if you want to suggest some topics for us for season 4. Go ahead and put those in the feed, and we'll take a look at it. Thank you so much for joining me on tonight, and until next year, because we won't be coming back on until 2022. So until yeah, 2022. So until next year, we will see you, and look for the video, because I will put the announcement out there for our season 4 Baggage Claim Unpack Your Bags with Dr. Danita. Have a good night.